Chapter 18. Dobby's Reward. For a moment there was a silence as Harry, Ron, Ginny, and Lucas stood in the doorway, covered in muck and smile and blood. Then there was screamed Ginny. It was Mrs. Weasley who had been sitting crying in front of the fire. She leaped to her feet, close followed by Mr. Weasley, and both of them flung themselves on their daughter. Harry, however, was looking past them. Professor Dumbledore was standing by the mantelpiece, beaming next to Professor McGonagall, who was talking great, steady gas, clutching her chest. Twigs went close, whizzing past Harry's ear and settled on Dumbledore's shoulder. Just as Harry found himself and Ron being swept into Mr. Weasley's tight embrace. You saved her, you saved her. How did you do that? I think we had all like to know that, said Professor McGonagall weakly. Mrs. Weasley let go of Harry, who hesitated for a moment. Then he walked over to the desk and laid upon it the Sorting Hat, the Rebecca's sword, and what remained of Riddle's diary. Then he started talking them everything. For nearly a quarter of an hour he spoke into the rapid silence. He told them about hearing the disembodied voice, how Hermione and finally realized that he was hearing a basilisk in the pipe, how he and Ron had followed a spider into the forest, and the Aragog had told them where the last victim of the basilisk had died, how he had guessed that Morning Metal had been the victim, and that the entrance of the Chamber of Secret might be in her bathroom. Very well, Professor McGonagall prompted him as he paused. So you found out whether the entrance was, breaking 100 of school roll into pieces along the way, I might add. But how the earth did you all get out of there, like Potter? So Harry, his voice now growing hoarse from all those talking, told them about Fawcett's timely arrival at about the Sorting Hat giving him the sword, but that then he flared. He had so far avoided mentioning Riddle's diary or Ginny. She was standing with her head against Mrs. Weasley's shoulder, and tears were still coursing silently down her cheek. What if they expelled her? Harry thought in panic. Riddle's diary didn't work anymore. How could they prove it had been him who had made her to do it all? Instinctively, Harry looked at Dumbledore, who smiled faintly. The firelight glazing off his half-moon spectacle. What interests me most, said Dumbledore gently, is how Lord Voldemort managed to enchant Ginny when my sources tell me he is currently hiding in the forest of Albania. Relief, warm, swimming, glorious relief swept over Harry. What that? Said Mr. Weasley in the stunning voice. You know who enchanted Ginny? But Ginny not. Ginny hasn't been, has she? It was his diary, said Harry quickly, picking it up and showing it to Dumbledore. Riddle wrote it when he was 16. Dumbledore took the diary from Harry and peered Neil down his long, crooked nose into burnt and soggy pages. Brilliant, he said softly. Of course he was probably the most brilliant student Hogwarts has ever seen. He turned around to the Weasley, who were looking utterly bewildered. Very few people know that Lord Voldemort was once told Tom Riddle. I taught him with himself 50 years ago at Hogwarts. He disappeared after leaving the school, traveled far and wide, sank so deeply into the dark art, consorted with the very worst of our kind, underwent so many dangerous magical transformations that when he refused as Lord Voldemort, he was barely recognizable. Hardly anyone connected Lord Voldemort with the clever, handsome boy who was once head boy here. But Ginny, said Mrs. Weasley, what's our Ginny got to do with him? His diary. Ginny sobbed. I have been writing in it, and he was writing back all year. Ginny, said Mr. Weasley, flabbergastedly, haven't I taught you anything? What I have told you, never trust anything that can think of itself if you can see where it keeps its brain. Why didn't you show the diary to me or your mother? A suspicious object like that. It was clearly full of dark magic I didn't know, sobbed Ginny. I found it myself once of the book Mom got me. I thought someone had just left it in there and forgotten about it. Miss Weasley should go up to the hospital right away, Dumbledore interrupted in a firm voice. This has been a terrible order for her. There will be no punishment older and wizard than she has been hoodwinked by Lord Voldemort. He strode over to the door and opened it, bed rest and perhaps a last steam mug of hot chocolate. I always find that cheer up me, he added, twinklingly kind down at her. You will find that Madame Pomfrey is still awake. She is just giving out mandrake juice. I daresay the basilisk victim will be waking up any moment. So Hermione is okay, said Ron brightly. There has been no lasting harm done Ginny and Dumbledore. Mrs. Weasley led Ginny out and Mr. Weasley followed, still looking deeply shaken. You know, Minerva, Professor Dumbledore said thoughtfully to Professor McGonagall, I think all this merits a good feast. Might I ask you to go and alert the kitchen? Right, said Professor McGonagall crisply, also moving to the door. I'll leave you to deal with Potter and Weasley, shall I? Certainly, said Dumbledore. She left and Harry and Ron gazed uncertainly at Dumbledore. What exactly had Professor McGonagall meant? Deal with them? Surely they weren't about to punish. I seem to remember telling you both that I would have to expel you if you broke any more rules, said Dumbledore. Ron opened his mouth in horror, which goes to show that the best of us must sometime eat our words. Dumbledore went on smiling. You will both receive special award for the service to the school and let me see. Yes, I think 200 points apiece for Gryffindor. Ron went as brightly pink as Lockhart's Valentine flower and closed his mouth again. But one of us seemed to be keeping mightily quiet about his part of this dangerous adventure. Dumbledore added, Why so modest, Gilderoy? Harry gave a start. He had completely forgotten about Lockhart. He turned and saw that Lockhart was standing in the corner of the room, still wearing his waggy smile. When Dumbledore addressed him, Lockhart looked over his shoulder to see who he was talking to. Professor Dumbledore, Ron said quickly, there was an accident down in the Chamber of Secrets, Professor Lockhart. I am a professor, said Lockhart in mild surprise. Goddess, I expect I was hopeless, so was I. He tried to do a memory charm and one backfired. Ron explained quickly to Dumbledore. Dear me, said Dumbledore, shaking his head, his long silver moustache quivering impelled upon your own sword. Gilderoy's sword, said Lockhart meanly. Haven't got a sword, that boy was, though. He pointed at Harry. He lent you one. Would you mind taking Professor Lockhart up to the infirmary too? Dumbledore said to Ron. I had like a few more words with Harry. Lockhart abbled out. Ron cast a curious look back at Dumbledore and Harry was closed the door. Dumbledore crossed to one of the chair by the fire. Sit down, Harry, he said. Then Harry sat, feeling unaccountably nervous. First of all, Harry, I want to thank you, said Dumbledore, eyes twinkling again. You must have shown me real royalty down in the chamber. Nothing but that could have called fox to you. He stroked the fingers which had fluttered down into his knees. Harry grinned awkwardly as Dumbledore watched him. And so you meet Tom Riddle, said Dumbledore thoughtfully. I imagine he was most interested in you. Suddenly something that was nagging as Harry came trembling out of his mouth. Professor Dumbledore, Riddle said, I'm like him. Strange kind of likeness, he said. Really now? Said Dumbledore, looking thoughtfully at Harry from under his thick silver eyebrow. And what do you think, Harry? I don't think I'm like him, said Harry more loudly than he indeed did. I'm in Gryffindor. I am, but he feels silent. A lurid doubt drifts suffering his mind. Professor, he started again after the moment. The sorting had told me I had done well in Slytherin. Everyone thought I was Slytherin's hire for a while because I can speak Parseltongue. You can speak Parseltongue, Harry, said Professor calmly, because Lord Voldemort, who is the last remaining descendant of Salazar Slytherin, can speak Parseltongue. Unless I am much mistaken, he transferred some of his power to you the night he gave you this card. Not something he intended to do, I'm sure. Voldemort put a bit of himself in me, so Harry said, thunderstruck. It certainly seems so. So I should be in Slytherin, Harry said, looking desperately into Dumbledore's face. The Sorting Hat could see Slytherin's power in me, and it put you in Gryffindor, said Dumbledore calmly. Listen to me, Harry. You happen to have many qualities Salazar Slytherin prizes in his hand-picked students. His own very rare gift, Parseltongue, resourcefulness, determination, assert and disagreed for rules. He added his moustache, quivering again. Yet the Sorting Hat placed you in the Gryffindor. You know why that was, thing? It only put me in the Gryffindor, said Harry in a diffident voice, because I asked not to go in the Slytherin. Exactly, said Dumbledore, beaming once more, which make you very different from Tom Riddle. It is our choice, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. Harry sat motionless in his chair, stunned. If you want proof, Harry, that you belong to Gryffindor, I suggest you look more closely at this. Dumbledore reached across to Professor McGonagall's desk, picked up the blood-stained silver sword, and handed it to Harry. Dull. Harry turned it over, the rubies blazing in the firelight, and then he saw the name engraved just below the hilt, Godric Gryffindor. Only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that out of the hat, Harry said, Dumbledore simply. For a minute, neither of them spoke. The Dumbledore pulled open one of the drawers in Professor McGonagall's desk and took out a quill and a bottle of ink. What do you need, Harry? In some food and sleep. I suggest you go down to the feast while I write to Azkaban. We need our gamekeeper back. And I must draft an advertisement for the Daily Prophet too, he had added thoughtfully. We'll be needing a new defense against the teacher. Dear me, we do seem to run through them, don't we? Harry got up and crossed the door. He just reached for the handle. However, when his door burst open so violently that it bounced back off the wall, Lucius Malfoy stood there, fury in his face and cowering behind his leg, heavy wrapped in bag was Dobby. Good evening, Lucius, said Dumbledore pleasantly. Mr. Malfoy almost knocked Harry over as he swept in the room. Dobby went scurrying in after him, crouching off the hem of his cloak, a look of abject terror in his face. The elf was carrying a stained rag with whichever he was attempting to finish cleaning Mr. Malfoy's shoes. Apparently, Mr. Malfoy had set out in a great hurry, for not only were his shoes half polished, but his usual seek here was disheveled. Ignoring the elf bobbing apologetically even his ankle, he fixed his cold eye upon Dumbledore. So, he said, you are come back. The governor suspended you, but you still saw fit to return to Hogwarts. Well, you see, Lucius, said Dumbledore, smiling secretly, the other 11 governor contacted me today. It was something like being caught in a hailstorm of owls, to tell me the truth. They heard that Arthur Weasley's daughter had been killed and wanted me back here at once. They seemed to think I was the best man for the job. After all, very strange tales they told me too. Several of them seemed to think that you had threatened to curse their families if they didn't agree to suspend me in the first place. Mr. Malfoy went ever paler than usual, but his eyes were still sealed of flurry. So, have you stopped the attack yet? He sneered. Have you caught the culprit? We have, said Dumbledore with a smile. Well, said Mr. Malfoy sharply, who is it? The same person as the last time, Lucius, said Dumbledore. But this time, Lord Voldemort was acting through somebody else by means of his diary. He held up a small black book with the whole large hole through the center, watching Mr. Malfoy closely. Harry, however, was watching Dobby. The elf was doing something very odd. His great eyes fixed magnificently to Harry. He kept pointing at the diary, then at Mr. Malfoy, and then hitting himself hard on the heel with his first. "I see," said Mr. Malfoy slowly to Dumbledore. "I clear plan," said Dumbledore in the low voice, still starting Mr. Malfoy straight in the eyes. Because of Harry here, Mr. Malfoy shot Harry a swift, sharp look, and his friend Ron hadn't discovered his book. Ginny Weasley might have taken all the blame. No one could ever have been able to prove she hadn't acted of her own free will. Mr. Malfoy said nothing. His face was suddenly mask-like, and Imagine Dumbledore went on. "What might have happened then? The Weasleys are one of the most prominent pure-blood families. Imagine the effect of Arthur Weasley and his Muggle Protection Act if his own daughter was discovered attacking and killing Muggleborns. Very fortunate the diary was discovered and Riddle's memory wiped from it. Who knows what the consequences might have been otherwise?" Mr. Malfoy forced himself to speak. "Very fortunate," he said stiffly, and still behind his back. Dobby was pointing first of the diary, then to Lucius Malfoy, then punching himself in the head, and Harry suddenly understood. He nodded at Dobby, and Dobby pat into a corner, now twisting his ear in punishment. "Don't you want to know how Ginny got hold the diary, Mr. Malfoy?" said Harry. Lucius Malfoy rounded on him. "How should I know how the stupid little girl got hold of diary?" he said. "Because you gave it to her," said Harry. "In flourish and blot, you picked up her old Transfiguration book and slipped the diary inside it, didn't you?" He saw Mr. Malfoy's white hand clench and unclench. "Prove it," he hissed. "Oh, no one will be able to do that," said Dumbledore, smiling at Harry. "Not now that Riddle has vanished from the book. On the other hand, I would advise you, Lucius, not to go giving out any more of Lord Voldemort's old school thing if any more of them find their way into innocent hands. I think Arthur Weasley, for one, will make sure they are tracked back to you." Lucius Malfoy stood for a moment, and Harry distinctly saw his right hand, which I had thought he was logging to reach for his wand. Instead, he turned to his house elf. "We are going, Dobby." Wrench opened the door, and as the elf came hurrying up to him, he kicked him right through it. They could hear Dobby squealing with pain all the way along the corridor. Harry stood for a moment, thinking hard. Then it came to him. "Professor Dumbledore," he said hurriedly, "can I give that diary back to Mr. Malfoy, please?" "Certainly," Harry said Dumbledore calmly, "but Harry, the fist, remember." Harry grabbed the diary and dashed out the office. He could hear Dobby's squeal of the pain residing around the corner, quickly wondering if this plan could possibly work. Harry took off one of his shoes, pulled off his slimy 50s socks, and stuck the diary into it. Then he ran out of the dark corridor. He caught up with them at the top of the stairs. "Mr. Malfoy," he gasped, skidding to a halt. "I got something for you," he added first. Then he smelled a sock into Lucius Malfoy's heart. "What the?" Mr. Malfoy ripped the socks off the diary, threw it aside, and looked furiously from the drawn book to Harry. "You'll need the same sticky end as your parents one of these days, Harry Potter," he said softly. They were Marcel some fool too. He turned to go. "Come, Dobby," I said. "Come." But Dobby didn't move. He was holding up Harry's disgusting slim socks and looking at it as thought it were a priceless treasure. "Master has given us sock," said the elf in wonderment. "Master gave it to Dobby." "What's that?" spat Mr. Malfoy. "What did you say?" "Got a sock," said Dobby in a disbelief. "Master threw it and Dobby caught it, and Dobby is a free elf." Lucius Malfoy stood frozen, staring at the elf. Then he laughed at Harry. "You have lost me, my servant boy." But Dobby shouted, "You shall not harm Harry Potter." There was a loud bang, and Mr. Malfoy was thrown backward. He crashed down the stair, three at a time, landing in a crumpled heap on the landing below. He got up, his face lived, and pulled out his wand, but Dobby raised a long, threatening finger. "You shall go now," he said fiercely, pointing down at Mr. Malfoy. "You shall not touch Harry Potter. You shall go now." Lucius Malfoy had no voice. With a last instant's stare at the pair of them, he swung his cloak around him and hurried out of sight. "Harry Potter, free Dobby," said the elf shrilly, gazing up at Harry. Moonlight from the nearest window reflected his orb-like eyes. "Harry Potter," said Dobby, "free." "Least I could do, Dobby," said Harry grinningly. "Just promise never to try to save my life again." The elf's ugly brown face slid suddenly into a wide, toothy smile. "I have just got one question, Dobby," said Harry as Dobby pulled on Harry's sock with standing hand. "You told me all this had nothing to do with he who know not be named, remember?" "Well, it was clue, sir," said Dobby, his eyes widening as though this was obvious was giving you clue. "The Dark Lord, before he changed his name, could be freely named, you see." "Right," said Harry weakly. "Will I go? There is a feast, and my friend's Hermione should be awake by now." Dobby threw his arm around Harry's middle and hugged him. "Harry Potter is the greatest by far than Dobby knew." He sobbed, "Farewell, Harry Potter," and with a final loud crack, Dobby disappeared. Harry had been at several Hogwarts feasts, but never one quite like this. Everybody was in their pajamas, and the celebration lasted all night. Harry didn't know whether the best bit was Hermione's running toward him, screaming, "You solved it! You solved it!" or Justin hurrying over from the Hufflepuff table to wring his hand and apologize endlessly for suspecting him, or Hagrid turning up at 3:30, cuffing Harry and Ron so hard on the shoulders that they were knocked into their plates of trifle, or his and Ron's 400 points for the Gryffindors securing the house cup for the second year running of Professor McGonagall standing up. "Tell them all that the exam had been cancelled as school treat." "Oh no," said Hermione, or Dumbledore announcing that unfortunately Professor Lockhart will be able to return to next year, owing to the fact that he needed to go away and get his memory back. Quick, a few of the teachers joined in the cheering that greeted his news. "Shame," said Ron, helping himself to a jam donut. "He was staring to grow on me." The rest of the final term passed in a haze of blazing sunshine. Hogwarts was back to normal with only a few small defense against the art class were cancelled, but we have had plenty of practice at my anyway, Ron told a disgruntled Hermione, and Lucius Malfoy had been shaken as a school governor. Draco was no longer turning around the school as though he owned the place. On the contrary, he looked resentful and sulky. On the other hand, Ginny Weasley was perfectly happy again. Too soon it was the last for the journey home on the Hogwarts Express. Harry, Ron and Hermione, Fred, George and Ginny got a compartment to themselves. They made the most of the last few hours in which they were allowed to do magic before the holiday. They placed exploding snap set of the very last of Fred and George firebuster firework and practiced disarming each other's by magic. Harry was getting very good at it. They were almost at King's Cross when Harry remembered something. "Ginny, what did you see Percy doing?" "That he didn't want you to tell anyone." "Oh, that," said Ginny gigglingly. "Well, Percy's got a girlfriend." Fred dropped a stake of a book on George's head. "What?" "It's Ravenclaw's perfect Penol Clearwater," said Ginny. "That's who he was writing to all last summer. He's been meeting her all over the school in secret. I walked in on them kissing in an empty classroom one day. He was so upset when she was, attacked. You won't tease him, will you?" she added anxiously. "Wouldn't dream of it," said Fred, who was looking like his birthday and came early. "Definitely not," said George sneeringly. The Hogwarts Express slowed and finally stopped. Harry pulled out his quill and a bit of parchment and turned to Ron and Hermione. "This is called a telephone number," he told me, scribbling it twice, tearing the parchment in two and handing it to them. "I told your dad how to use telephone last summer. She no call me at Dursley's." "Okay, I can't stand another 2 months with only Dudley to talk to. Your aunt and uncle will be proud, thought one day," said Hermione as they got off the train and joined the cross, throwing over the enchanting barrier. "When they heard that you did this year," proud said Harry. "Are you crazy? All those times I could have died and I didn't manage it. They'll be furious." And together they walked back through the gateway to the Muggle Barn. That's it for today, and here is the end of our second part. I'll bring third part very soon, so stay tuned for the next part. Till then, see ya, bye bye.